To me, the Enclave has always been one of the most interesting factions in Fallout. They're what's left of the pre-war American government, and while there are some problems with the organization that I've already outlined in my video on why the Enclave could never win, but realistically, they're the best thing for the Wasteland. The Enclave are undoubtedly going to return in the future. They've made too much of an impact on the Wasteland and on the fans of the series to disappear. With the way the Enclave have been depicted, it's doubtful they wouldn't have a contingency plan for their contingency plans. So how would they return? To answer this, we have to go back to 2242. Just after Control Station Enclave has been destroyed, the remaining Enclave forces that regrouped at Navarro were contacted by a Zax unit, and they were ordered to journey to Raven Rock in the capital Wasteland. When the Enclave forces arrived at Raven Rock, they started to rebuild their power. They started researching and producing weapons, and they expanded to various outposts and most likely reconnected with the previously established outposts that would no doubt exist. By the time you encounter the Enclave in Fallout 3, they had been expanding for around 45 years. Yes, it is canon that Raven Rock and the satellite array and Adams Air Force Base were destroyed, or at least purged of Enclave forces. But this wasn't the entirety of the Enclave. In fact, it's most likely that it was actually a minority of the total Enclave forces scattered around the American wasteland. The main objective of the Enclave for a long time has been reclaiming the United States. But the previous attempt failed because the Enclave was too focused on isolation. The survivors at Raven Rock, however, took the approach of expanding their forces to outposts. After all, when the Enclave arrived in the capital wasteland, Project Purity wouldn't have even been started, so there wouldn't be any reason for the Enclave to contain all of its forces within DC. It's very likely that Washington DC being the capital and the Enclave holding pre-war values, they would have a larger density of people stationed there, and not to mention that Raven Rock is just a good base. But again, there's really no reason for the Enclave to be focused in DC. And we can see that the Enclave is spreading out. From Fallout 3, we know that apart from Raven Rock, the Enclave controls the satellite relay station, SATCOM Array NW07C, and Adams Air Force Base. The first two are located in the playable area of Fallout 3, but the latter two are only encountered when the Lone Wanderer heads out of the vanilla map, specifically to target these installations. There could easily still be more bases around the capital wasteland. Then, from Arcade's backstory in New Vegas, we can determine that Navarro still had Enclave personnel after the main group left for Raven Rock in 2242. Also, we know that the Enclave had outposts in Chicago, and we only even know this because of one offhand quote by Dr. Whitley that Edie recorded. So, there's no real way of knowing how many bases the Enclave has. The only piece of information that can give us any hint towards this is when you talk to Colonel Autumn at the end of Fallout 3, he declares,
"The Enclave is at the height of its power."
If we take this as true, which we definitely should, looking at the Enclave's technology compared to 45 years ago. So, if we take Autumn's word, and we look at it in terms of troop numbers, Control Station Enclave was said to have at least 1,000 residents. Including Camp Navarro and all other outposts, this number would have at least been 1,100. If the Enclave is more powerful now, we can pretty safely assume the number of troops would be increased as well. Even if order meant more technologically powerful and not so much numbers, the Enclave can now increase their numbers much more efficiently. How? Because they recruit outsiders. Part of the old Enclave's ideals were to isolate themselves because they deemed all outsiders as mutants. Autumn's Enclave clearly doesn't hold these isolationist values, as I explained before. They even wanted to claim Project Purity to give fresh water to everyone in the capital wasteland. There's at least 2 specific cases of the Enclave recruiting outsiders in Fallout 3. Also, considering the number of Enclave personnel encountered in Fallout 3, when only a small number would have survived the destruction of the oil rig, and the fact that none of them are 60 plus years old, they couldn't all be old Enclave members or even the descendants of them. Now that I've established that the Enclave would have survived, I want to go over the best case scenario for them moving forward. First, Colonel Autumn needs to have survived, because you can either kill or spare Autumn at the end of Fallout 3, neither is yet confirmed, but it would be a no-brainer to bring back this character if the Enclave was to return in a future Fallout game. Besides, Bethesda can always just add the option to kill him in that game if they really want to. Also, Colonel Autumn being alive would work better for my next point. Secondly, the Enclave were retreating in Broken Steel. I think that it would work well if Colonel Autumn survived and he ordered the Enclave forces in the capital wasteland to retreat. Then when the Lone Wanderer assaulted Adams Air Force Base, most of the staff had already left, and the remaining forces were still in the process of preparing everything for transport. Obviously, all of the retreating forces would need a rally point. This could be Chicago, Florida, or a whole number of places. It really depends on where Bethesda decides to go in the next Fallout game. Speaking of Florida, I also think that the Enclave should have another mobile base crawler. This was such a cool vehicle to see in Fallout, and Broken Steel really did not do it justice. But how does it relate to Florida? Well, the mobile base crawler is actually a real-world vehicle developed in the 1960s, which was designed to move space shuttles and rockets. Only 2 were made, and both of them reside in the Kennedy Space Center in Florida. Now, of course, Fallout being in a different universe, there could have been many more made, and from the fact that there's one in DC, they could be anywhere. So hopefully wherever the Enclave end up, they have a mobile base crawler. Of course, the mobile base crawler isn't a great headquarters and is more of a secondary base. So what kind of headquarters would the Enclave have? Well, thanks to the White Springs surveillance recordings, we know that there's no other facilities built as Enclave bases besides the ones that we already know. I mean, seriously, what were they thinking when they recorded these? Bethesda specifically made it clear that the recordings were corrupted. All they had to do was garble the voice lines when they listed the other Enclave installations. But they didn't. So the best thing that could happen now is the Enclave found a top secret government installation with the capacity to act as a main base. The problem with this is, why wouldn't we know about it? Well, this installation would have to be guarding something as important as all of America's gold reserves. I am of course referencing Vault 79 here, because that vault seems to be so top secret that no one in the West Virginia Enclave knows about it. This installation the Enclave found doesn't necessarily have to be a vault. In fact, I'd prefer if it was more like Raven Rock and Lost Hills. And maybe this time, when the Enclave discovers a new base, it will still be fully staffed. That's about it for now. It seems almost guaranteed the Enclave will return, but there's probably nothing else we'll hear about them until the next Fallout game. Unless Bethesda actually puts them in Fallout 76, but that's still almost 200 years before Fallout 3, so anything could still happen. Okay, so I know it's been a while, and I don't have an excuse. I just not really had any ideas for videos, but now I do. I've got a few planned this week, and well, the update's coming out by the time I upload this, probably an hour till the update for Fallout 76. So we'll see what happens then. But besides that, see you next time. Hope you enjoyed the video. Bye.